what have you seen over time? I mean, I know you and I have talked many times about writing an article for Bee Culture magazine. And I have to say, I'm a little intimidated by this. And I have written for industry magazines, baking, meat, all kinds of things. But when it comes to the beekeepers, I had a chance to go to the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers, annual Christmas party or holiday party and give a talk. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, you all are so powerful, because if you decide to go out and tell everyone that the world is in danger, they'll listen to you. If you go out and decide you're going to tell everybody, look at how much better things are getting, or let me show you another path to your lawn, if you could do this convincingly, you have more power to change the world than almost anybody else I talk to, it feels like, because the public has so much trust. So I'm intimidated by beekeepers in a weird way.
Well, it's something new, and, I'm intimidated by you and you sitting behind a microphone all the time and interviewing people. I mean, we're all intimidated by different things. But, when you know a topic, when you know a subject and you have a passion for it, I wish more beekeepers would get out there and talk to their communities and talk to the Knights of Columbus and the Master Gardeners and everything else. But there again, as you know, there's a small percentage of the population that are like you or me, who are okay with getting in front of an audience and standing behind the microphone and what have you, and talking about that. And so how we could convince beekeepers to communally do a better job, it would be fantastic.
Well, I mean, I hesitate to talk about this because it's not ready yet, but this is a good conversation, is that from the podcast, I had so many people that were writing me during coronavirus saying, hey, I'd like to support it. I'd like to support it. And I didn't feel great about just setting out a donation can and saying like, oh, if you want to support the podcast, put this here. So what I decided to do was, I love teaching people about communications, and I love trying to show them not just like how to get rid of uhs and ums, but if you decided I want to get on the path to being a better public speaker, where would you go to get better? Where would you go to get practice? Where would you go to get your first speeches? How would you write emails to get other people to allow you? And I feel like I want to bring it up now, because if beekeepers are like that, they should join the network that I'm building. Right now, it's in this beta test user phase where I've got about 25. I was going to put 15 in, but I got so many people that volunteered. So they're just getting in there and trying out the classes and trying out the network. But I want this to build, because I want people that are trying to get better to help each other and use the internet to make it so we can learn from one another in a way that we haven't really leveraged in communications before. Yeah.
And, this is probably all a little bit easier, maybe a little bit salient, when you can do this face to face or, on a podcast or something. But you need to write an article for Bee Culture magazine about this. And I think that we can promote this to the national organizations, because I think something like this could be a workshop or a couple workshops at these national meetings for beekeepers in order to push this forward, because we all need that confidence. And we all don't know everything, and we need to have that ability to say, oh, I need to do it this way, or this is the way to do it. And then you can modify it from there, but you need a place to start.
Yeah. One of the great joys that I ever learned was when I was working at Monsanto, you would find these scientists who had spent 5, 10, 20, 30 years working on something, and all they wanted was like somebody to give them that little bit of a push, that few pieces of like, hey, just change the way you're doing your introduction and people won't fall asleep, and then you'll have them for the rest of the time. And when you watch somebody go from being locked in, they have all these great things to talk about, to being somebody that can release a little bit of it, it's like letting rainbows into the world or something. It's really, really powerful.
Well, it's super powerful. And, and being in a large corporation like that, I've always found it interesting that our leaders there didn't promote that kind of stuff. They wanted to be the spokesperson. They didn't want to share that time with somebody who probably knew 400 times more than they did on a particular topic. And so in order to make this a more equitable for everybody, you gotta tell them how to do it.
Yeah, and really, if you want the meritocracy to succeed, to be the people that are out there that are talking are the ones that know things that are interesting, have studied how to communicate it, and then have practiced. The way you create that meritocracy is you give people the tools that they need to go out and out compete. I used to always say, if somebody calls and says, hey, we want this person to come in and speak, and a corporation says, yeah, but the real official spokesperson is right here, you're missing the point of, like, how is it that people decide who they want to listen to and why they want to trust a person? And it really has to be this relationship where people say, we've seen this person say something we want to hear again over here. And I think corporations are reluctant to follow suit with that, because they're in the business of making money and controlling what the message is. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's why they're designed. But we should understand that's why they do what they do.
They do. Yeah, that's why they do what they do. But, and you've seen, and I've seen the same thing with people, say at Monsanto, those researchers who finally were taught, trained, what have you, to get in front. It was real to the audience. It was not an infomercial. It was real about a topic or what have you, and this is what we've done, and this is what we can do, and this is what you need to do, because it came from a real person who wasn't trained to do infomercials. And I think that actually builds value.
Oh, 100%. The greatest compliment that I ever received coming off of a stage after giving a talk one time was this woman came up, and she was with a group of people that had walked in right before the talk had began. And then they came up and they're like, hey, we just wanted to let you know that we are grateful that you did not give a Kool-Aid talk. And I was like, a Kool-Aid talk? What's a Kool-Aid talk? And she was like, the reason that the rest of the group didn't want to come with us, the reason we were late, is because we were sitting there debating whether or not we would come hear the Monsanto guy tell us why we should buy Monsanto products. And when you talked about just what you thought was important about communications and agriculture, we realized you weren't here to sell Monsanto, which meant it wasn't a Kool-Aid talk. And if you think about the value of that for the company, if you can get your people to not give Kool-Aid talks, but instead express the thing that they know deeply, that they understand, that they want to get out to the world, that's how everyone in the audience will feel.
Yeah, no, it was interesting when I first went to Monsanto and was first invited to give talks. There were, even though I had been in the industry for 30 years and had some reliability and resilience, I guess, and told the truth, there were people who, before I even started, got up and walked out of the room. And so it took probably 4 years, 3 or 4 or 5 years, before people had built that trust and confidence back up that Jerry wasn't going to give the Kool-Aid talk, that he was going to tell us a straight story about Monsanto and what's going on in honeybee health and what have you. But it takes time. And that's where, if you can start earlier, it's better than starting later.
I hope you like this podcast short, and I hope you'll hit that like button. It makes a huge difference for how many people see these videos. Also, if you've been following the podcast, you know that we are creating a way that you can support the podcast. People that have been longtime listeners have been asking me, how can I support it? So I created a network, and rather than just put out a coffee can or my hat hoping that people will donate to it, I decided that what I would do would be create a community where you not only get the value of supporting the podcast, but you get to meet other people that are interested in becoming tangibly better communicators. So I'll be there every once in a while putting up lessons. I'll try out classes that I'm putting on for sale to other people. And also we'll create a network where you can share your own speeches, where you can share content that you really care about and ask for feedback from the network. And this will be a network of people that have been trained and thought through how to give the best feedback possible to help you become a tangibly better communicator. I hope you'll check that out. If you're interested, go to my website, vancepro.com, and add your name to the email list. We're trying to let people in on stages, and rather than have hundreds of people all in at once, we're going to just do it a little bit at a time. So that way we can create a culture that is building and growing, and one that is sustainable over the long term. So I hope you'll check that out. Go to vancepro.com and add your email. I'm glad you're here.